Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the latest installment of the Algorithm webinar series for 2015. We appreciate you taking time on this Tuesday afternoon to join us. A couple of housekeeping details before we begin. First of all, the phones are currently muted, and we will have a Q&A period at the end of the session during which we will unmute the phones so that you can ask whatever questions you may have at that time. However, if you would like to submit questions during the presentation, you can do that through either the chat or the Q&A box within the WebEx system, and we'll make sure that we address those questions during the Q&A period. But it does provide you an opportunity to ask the question during the presentation. Secondly, I'd like to remind everyone that this is a webinar series that we're having on Tuesday afternoons. Next Tuesday is the topic is going to be document management. We'd like to invite you to attend. We're going to be covering the document management in Exact Macola 10 during that webinar. And then we're going to take a brief break during May because the Exact Customer Conference is coming up the second week of May in Boca Raton, Florida, and Algorithm is pleased to be the platinum sponsor for this year's event. We would like to encourage anyone that is interested in learning more about the Macola system or in trying to network with other users of the Macola system to enhance and perhaps extend out the way that you're using the system in your particular environment. This is a great opportunity to network not only with people from Algorithm and Exact, but also the entire user community. So we want to encourage anyone that's interested in attending Evolve this year. You can get information about Evolve from our website, which is at www.algorithminc.com, and we would be happy to set up particular meetings with you there at Evolve if you'd like to make sure that we can provide you a one-on-one type of time with anyone from our organization or from Exact. Please contact your account manager at Algorithm in order to arrange that type of a meeting. Finally, we're going to go ahead and get to our webinar today. Today's topic is Exact Macola 10 Human Resource Management, and my colleague Carl McKinney is on the line and is going to be doing the presentation for us. Carl, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And thank you,
I'm sorry, Carl apparently is having some difficulties connecting into the audio, and I apologize. Will you bear with us just one moment? Let's get Carl logged in to the audio portion. We obviously can see his screen, but for some reason the audio is breaking up. So I apologize. Let me get him connected. Give us one moment and we'll get him online. I apologize. I apologize. For some reason, the audio connection through Carl's computer disconnected him. So bear with us one second. Carl is dialing in on the phone line, and as soon as he gets logged in, then we'll be ready to begin. Carl, I see you logged in now. Can we hear you?
Yes, I hope so.
Okay, terrific.
Okay.
So just to make sure everybody didn't think that I was fooling, Carl is actually here to do the presentation, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him now. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, everybody, for joining. I just want to say we appreciate people's time today, so we want to make sure that you get what you can out of this. So if any questions are asked that we don't have answers for in the moment, we will certainly get those answers to you. But let's kick this off. Exact Macola 10, Human Resource Management. So without further ado, so here's an agenda for today. What we're going to be talking about, obviously, is Exact Macola 10, their latest software offering. And in addition to that, we're going to dive a little deeper into the business process management part of the application. So those that are familiar with Exact Macola products will be familiar with that a bit, but we're going to focus narrowly in on the human resource management section of that app. And specifically because that is a pretty wide gamut in terms of human resource management, the things that you can discuss, I wanted to focus in on the creating of a vacancy, and then the creation of an applicant, and then applying that applicant to that vacancy. So how do you, as an organization, open up a spot for employees to receive information against, and then as an applicant, how do you then apply for that role, and then how do you fill that role as a company? And then at the end, we'll have a quick question and answer, and that will be it. So let's go ahead and start with this slide that I like to show, which is kind of a 40,000-foot view of Exact Macola 10. So you have 4 products that are all kind of consolidated into one main product. So all these things equate to one main software, which is Macola 10. And this is what really has us excited about the offering, is that you no longer have to deal with separate maintenance and cobble together separate structures for renewal dates. It's a pretty simplified way to gain access to a powerful ERP with a lot of functionality. And if you've seen any of the other EM10 or Macola 10 webinars that we've hosted, you've gotten a glimpse in terms or into some of that functionality. And next week's I would ask everybody to attend as well on document management. But we have core ERP, business activity monitoring, personalized workspaces, and then BPM. So we're going to zoom in, because this is where we're going to really focus our discussion today, is on the business process management side of the fence. And with that, we're going to really highlight some of these details, which is it being a fully integrated backbone of your ERP with powerful HRM tools. So you have a full gamut, and you'll see this today, some of the options that are available to you as a human resource manager or staff member that you have access to in this software. And then you also have powerful Microsoft Office integration. So whether that is a Word, Excel, or Outlook email message, you have a really easy ability to tag those and code those into the software without much added need. And then you also have flexibility in the software that you didn't see in times past, so you no longer have to be pigeonholed or rigid behind how you're processing or how you manage your business. The software is really complicit in allowing you to do or manage your business and run things on how you see fit. So let's go into our demo, and pause as I take 1 second and go into our screen here. So is everybody able to see this okay?
Yes, Carl, we can see the menu for HRM.
Excellent. So this is where we're going to begin our discussion, and you see here that the HRM module, which I accessed up here in our menu bar, I'll click here, is got 3 specific sections. So entry is where you obviously enter items, and those can be any number of these things here. Reports is going to be where you would report against said items that were entered. So, you know, how many people do we have in our organization? What is the headcount structure of our organization look like? Even an organizational chart you have access to. So quite a bit of things there, and they're all broken down by, am I reporting against personnel? Am I reporting against, you know, business behavior or business analytics? There's some financial aspects that I can report against, and then all the full gamut of these items here. And then thirdly, we have setup. So that's going to be focused centrally around how do you set up divisions, cost centers, cost units, locations, everything relevant for your business, how you would then create or set those up, as well as under general settings, map particular parts of like an Active Directory or Windows-related contact management pieces to Exact Macola 10. So for our example, or for purposes of today's discussion, like I highlighted earlier, we're going to focus in on vacancy. So I'm going to go back to the entry module, and underneath vacancy, click here, and you see there's a bit of information that I'd like to just break down before I move on any further. But you'll notice this window hierarchy is very familiar for those that are current Synergy users, but what they've done is kind of opened it up a bit and allowed more access to different functional aspects of this particular section. So you always have this at the top here, a customized window. So if you see a particular piece to this vacancy request that you do not want or you do want and it's missing, you can always come in here to customize and then click on or off particular things that you as an organization would rather have. So for this, we're going to keep it as is. And this is going to be ubiquitous throughout. You'll see that the customized gear wheel throughout the entire Synergy Enterprise product. So we're going to go in here, and I am currently Jack McBean. So that is the person, and you'll see why that's important in a minute. But as Jack McBean, I have the ability to do certain things, and that's all based on security for my user that you would set at the outset. So I'm a manager, and I can select a particular division that I want this vacancy to be applied against, the particular cost center, contractual location. So we'll select that because that's you'll note that had a red asterisk next to it, which is a required field. And then that did something interesting here. It automatically filled in my physical location for Columbus, Ohio. We have job title. So let's see what we want to open up a vacancy for today. And these are obviously able to be added to. If I clicked new, I could add me a new one. But for these purposes, we'll just keep it with human resource staff. And we want them to be a full-time equivalent employee so they get all the full benefits and full approval and full access. And start date, let's just say we want them to start today. You can obviously bank this and have them start, a week, month, a year from now, but we want to set this up to start today. Below here, we can clip any type of international or national newspaper-related peripherals that we've collected or created for this vacancy. So we have an opportunity here to supported file types of, Word, Excel, PDF. You have PMG, any number of file formats that you can collect or connect to these vacancy for people to see or for people to view who are internally processing this request. And then we hop up to the top right, and we have details. And with details, we can make this vacancy internal, external, or both. Job description has a little document that we can link internally that would maybe describe the vacancy in further detail, right from within Synergy that we can link here. And then the focused area is going to be which category of our organization does this fall underneath. So HR staff, let's just say this falls under staff. And we also have the ability to write notes and keep a really good set of notes around this. So let's put HR staff vacancy. All right, so if everything looks well and good here, we can then save this. And we have just created vacancy request 20252, and we get a pop-up box here because we have the opportunity here to add competency profiles for this vacancy. We can either create a new one or we can have pre-linked competencies that are specific to this role that we would like the candidates to align against. So we're going to not do that for our purposes today, but that is an option here. And let's note that we have our vacancy 20252 for human resource staff, and it's created. And we have who created it. So myself is Jack McBean. We have the division it's associated with. We have all that relative information that we mapped across from earlier. So one thing to note is the status here. And this is something important to detail, that the status is going to be something that the system can be set up to either approve automatically or approve at a given time. And we have our set up to approve at a later date. So I can auto-trigger this to approve by going into my workflow for this vacancy, clicking in here, clicking into vacancy, and then hitting. You notice this, if you attended our webinar last week on workflows, you'll notice that this created, when I made this vacancy, a two-step workflow that automatically sent from myself to myself for subsequent approval. So now that's approved. Let's go back to our vacancy. And you'll note here that it's active. So that little step of, making that bump automatically approved that. So now, great, we've created a vacancy, awesome. So now what we want to do is apply an applicant to that vacancy. So let's go up here in our menu bar. You'll notice next to budgets, we have applicant. So let's start as if we're creating an applicant, say our an HR staff member got a candidate through the phone. And this candidate is somebody who is going to be filling out this role that we want to take a look at. So let's have him fill out this, and I'm just going through and filling out these relative bits of information. So we have Luke Skywalker, maiden name, and we can fill out everything that's relevant for this candidate. And then below we have preferences. And these things are all pulled directly from the vacancy. So this is preferences for the job he's looking for. So this is what we want him to align against. And then we have more information about vacancy underneath that, where we have where they generated or where this was sourced through. So we can say local newspaper. And then up here we'll have that candidate's address information, so his geography. And you'll note here it says address, number. So you'll put street name here. And let's just say, and then the number. And then the second address, apartment 1. And then let's just put in a zip code. And I'm going through and filling this out fully. Excellent. And then phone, mobile, email, obviously all that information. And then we can even attach their resume. So I put together a quick resume earlier just to show you this functionality. So here is Luke Skywalker's resume. And now I'm all said and done there. So again, very simply, I can write more notes. You noticed my notes from previous carried through when I created the vacancy, and now my notes, I can continue to build upon these notes. And that's the power of Synergy. You have it's a really great documentation tool, and everything is maintained throughout the system. So Luke, we'll put some information in here around this. And we'll save that again. And then again, it asks about competency profiles for this applicant. We don't have to create them right now, but that is an option for those that utilize that for their organization, and you have full capability to do that. So here is our applicant, Luke Skywalker, and his job title would be Human Resources Staff, and you'll notice his status is inactive. So again, this is just how we have our system set up. But if you wanted to auto approve applicants, you can certainly do that. And there is no active profile, obviously. They just were created in the system, so there's not going to be a lot of resident data for Luke until we get him hired and applied to the job and everything is working well. So one step to do that we need to do to activate this at least is to go, and this is just for our purposes, and you can set this up differently, but we'll want to reopen this very quickly. And you'll notice that activated him. And then separately, because this is, again, triggering workflows in the back end, how we designed it, we will go into his workflow that was created. So I created a workflow that gets sent to myself to realize and process. So let's just say we're satisfied with Luke, and we want to move forward with him. So we'll say Luke is a go, and we will realize this step. And again, that was a 3-step workflow. You can obviously change that to make that more or less, but we have that set to a 3-step. And now it's in the process step. So I'll go back in there and process that out. So there we go. Applicant Luke is been created, and now he is active. So everything is great. Now we have our completed vacancy, which is active in our system, and our completed applicant, which is also active in our system. So now we can kind of merge those two together. So how do we do that? Quite simply, we go into our edit menu of the applicant. So applicant Luke Skywalker is associated with that vacancy request, 20253, and we want to just simply go down here and edit that particular information. And we can scroll down a bit further and change this status type from applicant under employment, we can change that status type from applicant to employee. But before I do that, I want to just highlight some of the information on this page, because again, we can configure this if we wanted to see or remove different aspects of this. We certainly have the ability to adjust this based on how we like to do business. So let me go ahead and do that with one thing very quickly. So let's say we don't want to have place of birth available. So we'll go in here and uncheck that, and then save that and hit close. And then you'll notice that date of birth is there, but place of birth was before that. And now we no longer have place of birth, we just have date of birth. So we'll fill out the rest of this information for our applicant and have that all available so the system remembers that. So let's go back and put a birth date in here. And all the information that we have. And we have a lot of things under general that we can highlight. We can go down here to personal, which was already pulled across from when when the applicant was received in the system. And then we have start date. So that start date is going to align with when we want the date of the job to be fulfilled. So let's have him start today. Financial related information, so the tender type, social security number, tax number, any of that relative information there. We can upload a picture, so I did grab a picture of Skywalker there, and we've attached that. And then we have security level, so we can give him a security level. It defaults to 13. Again, that's editable by you. You can adjust that by what makes sense for your organization and for the particular vacancy that you're fulfilling. If they get an assistant, you can apply that to them here. So all this information is being built or being pulled directly from what we did earlier. So you can see how I can simplify and reduce the number of steps or clicks you have to do to accomplish the same goal. You don't have to keep re-entering the same bits of information or duplicating information, which is very helpful. So office information, and we'll just have it at McBean because he is working for Jack. And now we have all that information filled out, and we want to change this drop-down menu over here from applicant again to employee. And what that does is very simply allow us to click the vacancy that we have created and that Luke was interested in applying for and apply him to that vacancy. So we'll check that box, and you'll notice it says synchronize vacancy data, and we'll click OK. And now the system wants us to give Luke inside of the system a username. So right now username has been auto-defined by applicant and vacancy number, but we can simply change that to Luke Skywalker and hit our save. So this dialog pops up to make sure that you're aware that you're changing a username and that you're okay with that, and we are. And we will select OK. And now we have that completed applicant that has applied to that vacancy and fulfilled that role. So we see person 20253 Luke Skywalker, and we see that they are hired in, and their start date was today, and they're a full-time equivalent employee, and they have all the ability now to go in and begin to create not vacancies, but the ability to go in and create, say for example, vacation time, any kind of request around time off or particulars there. So let me go into Jack McBean's really quick and just show you the process of how you would do that. So for example, if I was Jack, and let's say we're jumping from Luke to Jack now after we've created that employee, and let's just show you the ability or how easy it is, the ability to create a vacation request. So under workflow for Jack McBean, I will go in and create new, and I want this to be a vacation request. So we can look up here in this recents block of what I've used, or I can scroll down and see things that I've used, but I know it's right here for vacation. And we see this is a two-step workflow for vacations. And let's give this a description of, or let's something even better yet. Exclamation point. And security level is the person that this will route to. And the vacation information is going to be start date, end date, and then the number of days will populate. So let's do evolves dates. And start time, end time, you can adjust those. And then we just put in a request. And let's hit create. And then that will create a workflow for vacation for Evolve 2015 for myself. And then that goes to the manager to approve, which in this instance is myself again. So you would, your organization would flow differently, but for the purposes of this demonstration, we've had that set up to do that. So we'll hit approve, and then that has been processed out. And you can see on a planning calendar here for myself, if I go to May the 11th, so this is the month of May from the 11th through the 13th, that is all highlighted as green, and it's because I'm planning for a vacation. So same holds true for any person in the system, have the ability to quickly see their planning calendar and know when people are available or aren't available based on your visibility into those different staff members' workflows. So let's go back in and see how Luke is doing. And I'm Sky. And he is here available. And these are all the things. Obviously, he wouldn't have much going on right now. He was just hired not even 10 minutes ago. But you would be able to quickly go in and gain access to him and see anything relative to what he's been working on or what he's been doing. And that's really the power of business process management. You always have visibility down to the different aspects of the individual, and that's all based on how you want to set it up as an organization. So really that was kind of a quick overview of those particulars, and if we have any questions, I'd be available to take those now. And again, if there are any questions that we don't get to or things that you would like to ask in more detail, you can always contact your algorithm account manager, and we'll make sure to get that information back to you. But Jeff, are you seeing any questions now, or do we have any questions presently on the phones or chat windows?
I have not seen any questions come in through the Q&A. Oh, I just got one. It says, we use this vacation time off request on our organization, but it always uses decimals, such as 8.6. Have you come across that?
So if you do, and if you can ask any further.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was a follow-up, and it was talking about days.
Gotcha. So, yeah, that is part of the system in terms of how it consumes days against somebody's particular overall time that they have off. So, if you do say one whole day, as an example, and the person takes a half a day for whatever reason, the system will automatically deduct 0.5 from that one and leave them with 0.5. So that is going to be an automated function of the system.
Oh, okay. All right, great. Now, I'm going to go ahead and unmute the phones. I'm sorry,
okay.
I didn't get them quite unmuted in time, but while we're getting the phones unmuted, we did get another question here in through the system, and it
okay.
says, are the workflows that were used in the demo included in EM10, or were they created by algorithm? In other words, are they available off the shelf?
Those were a part of our demonstration material, so those were created. I can get you some more particulars around the workflows that come resident in the software if that would be helpful. So I'll make sure to record that and have the appropriate person follow up with that individual. But yeah, those were created just so they flowed nicely between myself as Jack McBean and to myself as Jack McBean. So there wasn't, typically that would go from somebody to another organizational person who's on a different tier, so there would be some visibility there for somebody else to follow up on. and we didn't want to delay our discussion today, so we had that go right from point A to point B, so it can be approved quickly. But yes, you can design those obviously to your heart's content. And I'll make sure to see what is out of the box or comes out of the box.
Okay. All right. Good. And then just so we make sure we follow up, there are particular workflows that do come out of the box, and we just want to get an actual accounting of what they are. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Great. And then we've got another question. Do the resources that are created in EM10 get created on the Macola ERP side automatically?
The box. And forgive me, Jeff, let me look at that question one more time. Do the resources that get created in EM10 automatically get created on the ERP side?
Correct. In other words, if you create somebody in the front end in the HR management, will that resource also get created on the Macola ERP side or the back office side?
Right. There is a process that occurs where that information is mapped over, and that can be set up to occur with the frequency. What ours defaulted to was 5 minutes, and we had that sped up to a minute. But that information does get pulled, or would be able to be mapped across automatically to the ERP side. So that is an aspect of the software.
Okay, so just to follow up on that then, Carl, when you create a resource, obviously you're talking about creating an employee in the system and giving them security rights and things of that nature. Then you could, because that is passed over to the back office ERP portion of the system, you then could, depending upon what the role that new resource had in your organization, immediately start sending workflow items to them or assigning them as a resource to work on particular tasks. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct, yeah. So once we created Luke from an applicant to an employee, he was able to see the full lock, stock, and barrel of, or utilize the full scope of the software. So he had his own workflow, he had his own documents, he had his own ability to then create workflow that were at his security level and below, and obviously anybody above that had the visibility to his actions inside of the application as well.
Okay, all right, perfect. Now we've got a couple of different questions, so let me go ahead and give you one at a time here, Carl.
Okay.
You showed external and internal vacancies. I think it was actually whether the vacancies were exposed to internal or external people. Could you explain the difference or what that actually represented there?
Yeah, let me go back in there real quick. So if I created, as I was acting as if I was starting a new vacancy, I can see here underneath this details area that I have internal, external, or both. And those are going to be in terms of how you hire through to those, who has visibility to those. So are we, and this is just for other candidates, say in my role, or in this world, Jack McBean is going to be the manager who's deciding on this, but maybe in your organization you have somebody else. Or if they're underneath a different physical location, they would be a contractor of a different type. And you can have those vacancies available to be filled by internal staff through just mobility internally, or you can have it be occupied by somebody external to the company, and that would just give the person who was performing the vacancy approvals the ability to see that this applicant meet the particular needs for what we're looking for as an organization, if that makes sense.
Sure, and if you don't mind me asking a little bit different way, Carl, I know that some organizations will open up vacancies to their internal staff for perhaps a period of time before they will open up that vacancy to external applicants. Is that where we would be identifying who that vacancy is open to, whether it's internal or external?
That's correct, yeah. So you can always go through, and until that vacancy is approved, you have the ability to always adjust this. So my previous example of the HR staff, that was already approved, so I couldn't go back in and switch. Say we wanted to have a start date of 4/21, and that time elapsed, and we then wanted to open this up and switch it from internal to both. Then we could do that by going back into this vacancy request and selecting from the drop-down for vacancy type both. And that would simply then distribute that for people in the organization to say we can hire candidates or look at applicants from both spheres.
Okay. All right. Perfect. And then we've got an unrelated but similar question. Could you give us more? You mentioned something earlier, and they just want some more information about it. You mentioned about competencies and applicants. Could you give us more information about what do you mean by competencies? Are these particular skills or perhaps degrees that are required, or do you mean something different when you talk about competencies?
That's a great question. So let me go underneath here to reports and look at the particular competencies that are defaulted in our system. So we don't have very many, but organizations typically use or hire from this preset, these preset bits of skills, and that's exactly what these are. They're talking about whether that be interpersonal savvy, managing vision and purpose. There's any number of ways that organizations use competencies, and those are going to be the required skills to meet or showcase you have the number of skills necessary to perform the job. And that's where you would, and that is what those vacancies can be automatically linked to provide some visibility for the people that are doing the hiring that this person qualifies for based on their resume and skills and background, etc. So we don't have any in our system here presently, but there are places where you're able to enter in competencies to align your team against. So
okay, and are the competencies preset, or can they be tailored to a specific organization, and more specifically to a specific opening or vacancy within the organization?
That's absolutely that request when I initially created the vacancy to align this with the competency profile. That was what that question was asking, is do I want this particular opening to align with, excuse me, any of these particular types of attributes, so employee attributes of empathy or courage or interpersonal savvy or teamwork. All these things would be able to be linked to that vacancy for people to be able to then, as they're hiring, look and make sure that the candidates apply or align against.
Right. And then obviously there on the screen we see under competencies refresh, new, and close. So presumably that new button means that a company or an employee of a company could add or actually tailor some specific competencies that maybe are unique to that organization or that industry.
Exactly, exactly. And it doesn't have to be just one competency. You can have groups of those competencies. So you have competency groups, and those could be interrelated bits of those different models. So here's one, competency model 1, functional, methodical, social, and personal. And these are all system default, but you obviously can make a new group and underneath that cluster your own blend of important attributes for your personnel to align with.
Okay. All right, great. Now, this is a slight shift in this question is a little bit different. It's not dealing with competencies. Will this system integrate with benefit systems? And I'm assuming that they mean external benefit systems, compensation, or other types of external systems like training, for instance.
I know we have a number of customers that use this particular HR management function with third-party payroll providers or third-party benefit providers. So the integration between the two, I'll have to get the answer on in terms of if there is a direct integration, but it usually sounds like they are functioning in their own silo, so to speak. So I'll get more information about that and send that out, but I just want to make sure I'm providing you with the right answer on that.
No, and that makes sense. And just so everybody understands, well, if we are unsure of the answer to your question, we would rather not fake it and give you an answer that we just think might be correct. We would rather be certain. And so if you'll bear with us, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and follow up with an expert in the area, and we'll get you a definite answer. We are making notes here of who's asking what questions. So the appropriate account manager from Algorithm will follow up with you on specific questions that we're investigating for you. And we've still got a little bit more time. Obviously, we've had a couple of good questions here. Any other questions? You can either enter them through the Q&A or the chat function in WebEx, or the phones are unmuted as well. So if you'd like to join the conversation, please feel free. Any other questions? Okay, well, while you're considering it, I do have another follow-up question. What does it take to integrate with ADP?
That's that seems to be linked to the other, and I'll make sure to get that resolved. But that would be one that would take some looking at. Obviously, we need to investigate what we're integrating on the HR side, and then see how that applies, because that can be a pretty big conversation, and we want to make sure we're giving you the right answer on that.
Right, and just from personal experience, I know that ADP both provides payroll services, but then also they do benefits management as well. Mm-hmm. So we would need to obviously know what type of an integration you would want, whether you would be dealing just with payroll or if it's something beyond just payroll. So we'll get answer to that question for you as after the session, and we'll make sure that we get those answers to you. Are there any other questions that anybody has?
These are great.
Yeah, these are terrific questions. I'm not seeing any more right now, but if you do want to submit further questions, please don't hesitate. While we're waiting for additional questions, I'd like to just start our little bit of wrap-up. Oh, and this is a terrific segue here. Thank you, Carmen, for that question. We were asked if we have recorded the presentation. Yes, we have. And the recorded version of the presentation is going to be available. It takes about 24 hours for us to convert the format that we get the recording from WebEx in and convert that to a usable format for us to utilize in other different types of social media like YouTube and on our website. So if you'll bear with us, once we get that recording converted, then we can share that recording with you. Obviously, Carmen and I are familiar with each other, so I'll be sure to get that over to her. But if anyone else either wants to access the recorded version or would like to get a copy of it, please, you can access that or make the request through your Algorithm account manager, or after a couple of days, you will be able to access those through the Algorithm Inc. website as well. Now, a couple of housekeeping things. If you have other questions, please submit them. But I'd like to go ahead and make sure that we cover a couple of other things. One, again, I want to remind you that next Tuesday we will have the last of this series of webinars prior to the Exact Customer Conference in Boca in the second week of May. We will be covering document management next week. And obviously another thing that we are thinking about is we are planning or in this planning stage of continuing the webinar series after we get back from the customer conference, and we have a number of different topics that we are considering. We always are open to requests or suggestions from our attendees. If there are specific topics that you would like to see covered during the webinar series, please send those requests in either through your Algorithm account manager, or at the end of this presentation, you'll be redirected to a survey questionnaire, and you can certainly put in your ideas about other topics that you'd like for us to cover in that survey questionnaire, and we do take those very seriously when mapping out and selecting what topics we're going to be covering in future webinars. Also, I mentioned the Exact Customer Conference coming up in Boca Raton, Florida in May. Again, Algorithm is very pleased to be the platinum sponsor for this year's event. We'd love to see all of you there. If if we have not met before and you are coming to the customer conference, either contact us beforehand so that we can set up a time that we can meet, or if you don't have a scheduled time for a meeting, please stop by our booth there at the Exact Customer Conference in Boca. Introduce yourself. We'd love to get to know not only our customers, but get to know your business and what types of business needs you have that we may be able to help you with. And then finally, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's presentation. Terrific questions. It really is helping us to flesh out these presentations and cover aspects that maybe we haven't considered that are specific things that you're thinking about. So we appreciate your involvement and interaction with us during the presentation. And then finally, I want to thank Carl. Carl, terrific presentation today. We're going to follow up with some of those questions that you asked that we need to get more detailed or more certain answers for, and we'll be getting back in touch with you with those answers. But Carl, terrific job. Thanks again.
Thank you. Yeah, this was fun, and everybody enjoy their week.
Absolutely. Thanks again, everybody, and we hope to see you next Tuesday when we have the next installment in our webinar series on document management. Have a wonderful afternoon, everybody. Thanks again.
Thank you.